All right, so I'll kind of describe the progression of how I started to fix my shot. And again, actually the last few years I've been shooting bad because I was shooting too square again, but I just started figuring this out and I'm shooting a lot better, shooting more sideways just recently, last few days. I started figuring this stuff out. Like one thing that I noticed is, the way I would kind of fix it is I shoot with my left hand, which hasn't been messed up by the shoot away. So I'll go into it and then I'll kind of like step back like this and shoot, and then I'll be really sideways, right? So I'm, or like if I'm going for a layup, I'll go like this and I'll be sideways, and then the basket's right here. So I'll go like this and then be sideways and then shoot like this. And then shoot like this. You see how sideways I am? So then I do the same thing with my right hand that hasn't been messed up with the shoot away machine. It'll be really sideways. But like I said, when I was a good shooter, I would step back and then I would be really sideways on the shot, right? I'd step back and I'd be really sideways. And but then when I got the shooting machine, I was picking the ball off the rack and I was going straight forward, making my feet square, right? Not doing the, catching it. Catch like this, be back, and then go sideways. You can't move into it like that. I'm picking the ball off the rack and I'm going like this, making my foot go square. And then my dad tried to fix it. He's telling me, well, pick the ball off the rack and then spin. And then you'll be sideways, spin into it. But no player does that. Everybody who moves this way on a shot is going to shoot square. But like I said, Kobe will do this. He'll move this way, but then he'll jump in the air and he'll turn sideways on the shot. But I'm not going to be, if I'm picking the ball off the rack and I'm doing this over and over again, I'm not going to be going like this and turning sideways. And no. But my dad's like, well, go this way and spin. No. A good player, most of the time, is not going to be dribbling right hand and doing this, unless you're like Kobe and you're jumping in the air and you're turning sideways. Most good shooters will bring the ball to the left hand and then go like this because it makes them sideways. Okay. But anyways, I'll show myself hopefully soon videos of me shooting in the game and playing a lot better, like I was when I was with Comedy College. But I'll describe the progression of me fixing my shot. I just started fixing it again in the last few days, but I started getting back into playing basketball. But I'll talk about this. But so going back to high school. So as I said, my dad's in the backyard. He's telling me, because I was going like this because I was shooting square. He's telling me you're shooting square because I'm picking the ball off the rack and I'm going like this and I'm shooting, right? Or I'm just picking the ball off the rack and shooting, and it's making me square. And so I was like, okay, we'll spin into it. So my dad didn't tell me go like this. So I'm picking the ball off the rack and I'm going like this. This is how I'm shooting in 10th grade. But like I said, at first I was shooting like this. My dad's like, I give up. You suck. I can't help you anymore. You every time you shoot square. So and then this is the first time he beat me up. I'm like, Dad, come on, I need your help. Because I didn't know. The reason I was so good was because I was unconscious. I did this stuff unconsciously. So I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know what was wrong with my shot. I didn't know, and I didn't know that you don't spin in the shot. So then my dad was like, he's like, I give up, you suck. I'm like, Dad, I need your help. And then my dad's like, ask me again, I'm gonna fuck you up. And then that's when he grabs me, throws me to the ground, and that's when the abuse starts to happen, okay? So, as I said, then there's abuse going on. But then my grandpa came in 11th grade. So, like I said, what would happen is sometimes I would be playing good or decent, but my dad, I discovered a superficial. So I'd be like, hey, Dad, I'm playing good. I've been playing good in practice. Can you shoot with me? And my dad'd be like, you're playing good? How good are you playing? Oh, you had a good game? Okay, I'll go to your next game and I'll shoot with you. But my dad, he'd get frustrated because he'd see me shooting. He'd be like, you're shooting terrible. You're shooting square. Your shot looks horrible. So then he would stop shooting me and he'd be like, I give up. I can't help you. And I'd be like, Dad, I need your help, man. Because like I said, the reason I was so good was because I was unconscious. I never thought. So that's why I did things automatically awesome. But because of that, when I'm picking the ball off the shoot away rack, and this is a thing, this is an ironic thing. I remember I was picking the ball off the shoot away rack and I was shooting. And then I go inside and my dad's sitting inside. And my dad says, you're just shooting for 15 minutes. He said, NBA players, they shoot for hours. You need to shoot for hours. But I think that unconsciously, I knew that it was futile and it was not helping me. I think unconsciously, I knew the shoot away machine wasn't helping me. And I didn't want to shoot. That's why I only shot for 15 minutes. My dad's like, you need to go back out there and you need to shoot for an hour if you want to be the best. But then I'm going out and I'm going back outside And I would have been better off not shooting, because then I'm going in the backyard and I'm picking the ball off the rack, and you can't move into shots correctly. If I was giving passes, I would have been moving into it and just doing things automatically, unconsciously. But because I'm picking the ball off the rack, I would have been better off not shooting. But my dad's like, go out there and shoot more. So then I'm picking the ball off the rack and I'm trying to go sideways artificially. Whereas before it was just automatic. I would, I'll dribble like this and then go like this, or, catch it, my right leg back and then go like this, or like step like this and then go like this, and I'd be sideways. But because I'm picking the ball off of the rack, I can't be sideways. Unless I spin, which is what my dad does, unless I pick the ball off the rack and spin, but I can't move into the shots correctly. So then my grandpa comes in. This is 11th grade. And like I said, there's conflict with me and my dad, and I'm telling my dad, can you help me shoot? And he's like, I give up, I can't help you anymore. And I'm like, Dad, and that's when my dad would beat me up. Be like, ask me again, I'm gonna fuck you up. Be like, Dad, come on. I was like, because then I started telling him, I'll be like, Dad, when I was the best, you shot with me every day. You went to all my games, and I wanted him to go to my games so he could see my shot, see what was wrong with it, and try to help me. And like I said, my grandpa would later be like, Ryan, why do you expect your dad to help you? Why do you expect that? Because he doesn't know anything about basketball. My dad helped me my whole life, and he was the one who imposed himself on me. He's the one who messed up my shot. But I didn't know that. He was like, why would you expect that? Trying to make me the bad guy again. And my grandpa would tell me this later, and I'd be like, but the thing is, my dad helped me my whole life. That's why I never had to think. But because he was passing to me, I would just move into shots naturally, so he didn't really have to help me too much. He would just tell me, Ryan, you're shooting with your legs too far apart, or Ryan, you need to shoot with more arc. Just little stuff. And so I never had to think, because if there's anything wrong with my shot, my dad would just tell me, hey, Ryan, your feet's too wide. So I was the best. But because I'm picking the ball off the shoot-away rack, now I'm shooting bad. And then my dad's telling me, like, well, Ryan, we'll spin, spin into your shots. And he's telling me to do the wrong thing. But he didn't know that. And he's thinking there's something wrong with me, but it was nothing wrong with me. It's because I was practicing picking the ball off the shoot-away rack. So then my grandpa comes in. This is like 11th grade. My grandpa lived in Kauai my whole life, right? So then he comes in 11th grade. So he never knew how good of a shooter or good of a player I was. He comes in 11th grade, and then I'm having conflict with my dad, and my mom's upset with me. So my grandpa's like, Ryan, what you have to understand is everything is energy. He's trying to teach me his metapsychiatry. Everything is energy, and God is energy, and everything is one, and you can't make things happen. If you're in the flow, you can't make things happen. You have to be in the flow, and the flow isn't letting things be. That's not the flow either. But the flow is, is making things possible. But you can't make things happen, and you can't force things, and you can't get your way. You want your dad to help you shoot, but you can't get your way. You can't force people. You can't make things happen. You can't force people. So he's trying to teach me this shit. But the thing was, my shot was messed up, and my dad was the one who messed it up. Like I said, my whole life, my dad was the one who would tell me what to do if there was anything wrong with my shot. And I needed my dad. But my grandpa, later, my grandpa would be like, why did you expect your dad to help you? Again, trying to make me the bad guy. Your dad didn't know about basketball. My dad, like I said, my dad helped me my whole life. And my dad was the one who imposed himself on me with the shoot-away machine and was telling me to do the wrong thing. But my grandpa didn't know this. So my grandpa comes in, and my grandpa's like, this is completely normal what's going on with you and your dad. Really what Ryan wants is independence. That's what Ryan really wants. Everyone just wants independence. Because my grandpa's an Ayn Rand fan, and Ayn Rand's all about independence and making yourself independent and working hard. And so my grandpa's just like, work hard and just be independent. And so then, my mom and dad interpret this as, okay, let's be cold and callous and mean and throw Ryan to the side. So then they made me go live with my grandpa. But I would go back and forth, living with my grandpa and living with my mom and dad. But during this time period, so my grandpa's teaching this stuff to my parents too. And my grandpa's like, Ryan has to learn that everything is just fine because Bill Russell, he was a black guy. And Bill Russell played in the NBA, and there were racist people, and they said racist things to him. But then Bill Russell, just one day, he was just like, he just thought, everything is just fine. And then he just had peace. And that's what Ryan, he just needs to know that everything is, and just have trust in the universe and trust in energy. And everything is just fine. And all these teachings are okay. They're fine. I don't want to be mean, But yeah, those teachings are nice. Yeah, it's true. Being in the flow is cool. That's good stuff. But the problem was, my dad was still having me in the backyard. My dad was telling me, spin in your shot, spin sideways. He's telling me to do the wrong thing. And so things were really bad. So I'm shooting wrong, I'm shooting bad, but my grandpa's like, everything is just fine, that's all right. So then I'm like, Dad, my dad goes to the backyard and he's like, I give up, it's useless, you suck, I can't help you anymore. So then he goes inside, and I'm like, Dad, I need your help. And my grandpa's like, Ryan, you can't make things happen. If your dad doesn't want to shoot with you, you have to just accept it. Realize everything is just fine. Everything is just fine, Ryan. And then he's had me do like meditation and stuff. Like he took me to this like place where I'm doing meditation and all this stuff. But the thing was, like I said, if it wasn't for the shoot away machine, none of this would have happened. If my dad was just passing to me, I would have just automatically, because I was amazing, because I was unconscious and I was automatic. But so then my dad's like, so then I'm go to my dad and I'm like, Dad, can we shoot around a little bit today? And my dad's like, I don't want to shoot. No, I'm not interested. I don't want to shoot with you, because my grandpa. I think that's another thing. My grandpa teaches things. My grandpa would say this thing like, I'm not interested. So my grandpa would be like, I'm not. My grandpa would be like, I'm not interested. I'm not going to shoot with you. No, I'm not going to shoot with you. Actually, my mom, I'm not gonna get into the whole I'm not interested thing, but I'm not gonna shoot with you. So then I'll be like, Dad, come on, because I felt like I needed him, because like I said, my whole life I didn't know how I shot, and my dad was the one who was telling me my shot was ugly. He's the one who's telling me that, but I didn't know, and I didn't know how to make it look good, and I didn't know that picking the ball off the rack was the problem. That was the ultimate problem. So it was futile. So this is a tragedy situation, like I said. So then my grandpa's like, everything's just fine, Ryan. And then my mom be like, yeah, Ryan, everything is just fine. You just have to accept that. Everything is just fine. But then I'd be talking, but I tried to get my dad to help me shoot, because my shot's messed up. I didn't know it was a shoot away. And he's the one who's telling me that it's ugly. So I'm like, Dad, please don't give up on me. I'm like, but then probably I started getting arguments with my dad. And I'm like, Dad, when I was the best, you cared. You went to all my games. You shot with me every day. And now I realize all you cared about was how you looked. Because, when I score 4 3-pointers with OJ Mayo, then you go to my next game, even though you said you weren't going to go to any of my games anymore because you're mad at the coach for taking my starting spot. I ended up getting my starting spot again in 11th grade. But, so now arguments are starting to happen. And my dad's like, keep talking to me, I'm going to fuck you up. And then my dad grabbed me, throw me to the ground, and put me in a headlock. And then start bashing me. And my dad really started abusing me really bad. So then, like I said, my grandpa's like, Ryan, everything is just fine. You can't get your way. You can't force things. You can't force people to get your way. You can't force. So then my mom, when I'd be like, Dad, come on, man. I'm like, Dad, can you please come to my games, look at my shot? Can we please shoot around? And then my mom would be like, Ryan. My dad and my mom would be like, Ryan, everything is just fine, Ryan. Everything is just fine. I'd be like, Dad, please. No, they just mimic my grandpa. Everything is just fine, Ryan. Just accept. Everything is just fine. And I'd be like, Dad, I need your help. And I'm gonna fuck you up. You say it one more time. And then he'd run up and grab me and throw me to the ground. And then he'd start beating me up. And he started really abusing me really bad. So then, and then my mom would be looking at me and she'd be like, look at how ugly he is. Look at all those zits on his face. You're such a fucking loser, Ryan. You're so fucking ugly. Saying this stuff. And my mom would be like, you need your daddy, you fucking pussy. You're 16 years old. You need your fucking daddy, you pussy. What are you, fucking 2? You need your daddy. So my mom would be taunting me as my dad's beating me up. So then, like I said, my mom and dad kicked me out of the place, and I'm staying with my grandpa, or I'd be staying with my mom. And like I said, I'd be calling my mom and dad. I'd be like, Mom, can I please come home? My mom would be like, you can't come home, you fucking piece of shit. You fucking piece of shit, you can't come home. You're not allowed home. Do not fucking try to come home. And I wasn't allowed to have a car either. That was the thing, because then I would drive home. But I'd be like, Mom, I want to talk to Dad. I want Dad's help and stuff. No, you're not allowed back home. What do you fucking need your dad for? You're 17 years old, you fucking piece of shit. You're 17, you're not fucking 2, you need your daddy. You're such a fucking pussy. I'm embarrassed I have a son who's a fucking pussy. Who's a little bitch. Who's a little fucking bitch. And I'm not joking, but the thing is, my mom probably said things way worse. My mom, I can't even repeat it because I'm not an evil person, like a stupid evil person like my mom. So I don't even know how to repeat what she was saying. But I needed my dad's help because, like I said, my dad was the one who fucked up my shot in the beginning. And I didn't know that, though. At the time, I didn't know that. And see, now I know that. But at the time, I'm thinking, I need my dad's help because my dad helped me my whole life. And my dad's the one who's telling me my shot's ugly. And my dad's the one who's telling me what to do. He's like, well, spin into it and put your foot like this. And I didn't know at the time that he's telling me to do the wrong thing. But at the time, I think he's telling me to do the right thing. But I think I need him. And like I said, he imposed himself on me. If he would have just passed me and just let me be, I wouldn't have needed him. Because I would have just been doing stuff automatic. But I was picking up all the racks, so then I'd come home and my dad would look at my shot and be like, your shot looks terrible. Of course it did, because I was picking up off the shoot away rack. But then, like, I remember one time my grandma came from Kauai, and I was shooting in the backyard, and my dad comes out. My dad's like, it looks terrible. And then he starts passing me, and I remember I started shooting better. And my dad was like, see, I fixed it. I'm the shot doctor. And my grandma was laughing. She's like, ha, he's the shot doctor, ha. And then I went back to shooting on a shoot away machine. And I remember my dad came back out, and my dad was like, you know, your shot looks terrible. Now I know. You see, at the time I had no idea. Now I know it's because I was picking them off the shoot away rack. And my dad couldn't compute that was what was messing me up. So it's crazy to me. But in my dad's mind, he's just like, just spin, come on, just spin sideways. He didn't know it. It's all about how you move into the shot. And if you're picking the ball off a rack, you can't move into the shot correctly. And at the time, I didn't know that. So I'm thinking that my dad knows what he's talking about. And now I know, because I looked at the videos. And like I said, when I looked at the videos, I saw. Because I you know, in college, I looked at the videos and I saw it. I was like, it was so obvious to me. Before I would catch it and I would be, you know, stepping to the side and doing this, or I'd be skipping into it, or I'd, you know, do this type of stuff, or I do, you know, but when, you know, and you do stuff to make yourself sideways. But when I had the shoot, I was looking at the videos and I'm like, oh, because I was stepping like this, and my dad would tell me your left foot's, it's because I'm picking up off the rack and you can't step to the side, you can't move into it naturally and do all the stuff that you do. So I was like, oh, that's what happened. So it's so obvious to me. But I'll get to how I discovered that in college. But my grandpa's in there. My grandpa's like, Ryan, everything's just fine. Everything is energy, and you can't make things happen. And so then, like I said, I would go. I would try to talk to my dad, and I'd be like, Dad, can we shoot? And my dad'd be like, everything's just fine, Ryan. My mom would be like, Ryan, everything's just fine. So then, we went to a psychologist. And then I'm trying to tell the psychologist, I'm like, because the main problem was my dad was capricious. Because my dad would shoot with me sometimes, especially if I was doing good. Like if I had a good game, like he read in the newspaper that I made a game-winning shot or something, he would be shooting with me that whole week because my dad would be happy. And again, my grandpa always blamed the victim. So my grandpa would be like, you know, later, after college, my grandpa would be like, I tried to tell my grandpa this, and my grandpa was like, Ryan, he didn't shoot with you because he was happy with you because you were playing good. He shot with you because you were playing good, you were happy, and you treated him nicely and with respect, and then he shot with you. Again, my grandpa's a piece of shit. He always blamed me. He always did that shit. He helped me a lot in terms of, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have discovered the theory of everything. But my grandpa was so fucking evil, dude. How stupid he was, dude. But So basically, you know, but yeah, so I'm talking to psychologists. I'm like, you know, can we make it so like once a week? Because sometimes my dad would shoot me for a whole week, and sometimes he wouldn't shoot me for a month because he'd be upset. So I'm like, can we make it so like, let's just set up a rule where like every Monday for 15 minutes, I just need 15 minutes just so my dad can look at my shot and he could tell me. I just need 15 minutes because at that point it was just damage control because I was shooting so bad because I was picking up off the rack, but I didn't know that it was because of the rack. But I just needed him to tell me, because he would tell me your shot looks ugly. And I didn't want my shot to look ugly, so I just wanted him 15 minutes, one day a week, just look at my shot so that he could just alter things so it didn't look super ugly. But I didn't know the shoot rate was the problem. But then my dad was like, I'm not gonna do that. And then my grandpa was like, Ryan, You just have to accept. Okay, you think you made a bad call. You just have to accept. Everything is fine. Everything is energy and everything is one. You just have to accept. You can't make things happen, right? You can't get your way. You can't force people to get your way. So that is going to lead it up to the terror that ends up happening in my life.